So it's important to make sure that we focus on finding good fit clients, because in a world where this buyer's journey has completely changed, we need as much leverage as possible to be successful in profitably growing our colocation business. However, if we want new revenue sources, we need new clients. If we want more new clients, we need good sales opportunities. And if we want good sales opportunities, we need good leads. So how do we reverse engineer this so we can get more highly qualified leads? The challenge for a lot of colocation providers is their websites, in many cases, are just glorified brochures. How many of you would characterize your existing website as not being terribly functional in the lead generation department and just basically a glorified brochure online? The challenge with a lot of these websites is even when they start to generate leads, there's typically only 1 or 2 or 3 places on the entire website where someone can raise their hand and say, I'm a hot prospect, I'm ready to talk to you. There's usually a contact us page, maybe there's a schedule a tour button, request a quote. And those are okay if you only want to appeal to people that are ready to talk to sales. But those are people that are 70 or 80, 90% baked. What about the much larger part of the market opportunity where we can get people that are really good fit buyer personas? It could be really good future clients, but they're not ready to talk to sales quite yet. How do we have lead generation content in the awareness stage where people are just beginning to research broad-based problems? That's where most colocation providers are falling down, is they just simply don't have enough places on their website where someone can raise their hand and say, yeah, that blog post was amazing, that video was awesome, that webinar was great. Yeah, I'm going to basically give you my business card for a free copy of that ebook. And that's essentially what's happening. They land on your website, they've asked a question, they find a piece of content, they're like, wow, this stuff is really good. I've been searching for something just like this for hours, for days or weeks. I can't believe I finally found it. That's reaction number 1, and that's really important because it prevents them from bouncing out. If they bounce out, there's an excellent chance that they're not coming back. They're gone. You're not going to see them again. But the problem is if they bounce out, Google knows that they've also bounced out. So that sends a really bad signal, and in the future it's very unlikely that Google or Bing or Yahoo is going to continue to send visitors that are searching for the answer to a question like that. So we need to do everything possible to keep them on our site, and one of the best ways to do that is to provide really good, helpful educational content. Thing number 2 that we're after is when they say, wow, this is really good stuff, what else do they have to say? Who are these folks? And that's when they start to notice, oh, there's a free ebook that goes into this in a lot more detail. They click through, they go to your landing page, and you're like, yep, these blogs are amazing. I got to get access to the ebook. It's free, and it's all in the value of the beholder. Typically, the more valuable your buyer persona perceives your information to be, the more questions you can afford to ask. Typically, when we see really wimpy landing pages that are just asking for like first, last, and email, they're not even validating to make sure they have a company email. It's usually because one is nobody's really thinking through digital strategy, and they're not providing enough value in return. Somebody that's taking a tour or getting a free consultation is going to give you, that's much further along in the journey, will give you a lot more information than someone that's just downloading a one-page checklist on HIPAA tips for healthcare CFOs. So make sure that if you want to be generating highly qualified leads from your website, you think about what's in it for them. Why would they care enough that they're willing to part with their contact information for what's on the other side of their landing page? Your website should be your hardest working 24/7 sales rep, doesn't call in sick, doesn't fight with coworkers, doesn't need time off to recharge, doesn't overpromise on your capabilities. How many of you ever had people on your sales team that overpromise capabilities? They don't sacrifice pricing power for short-term gains, and they don't threaten to take their book of business elsewhere. So some of the basic lead generation requirements is there needs to be content for each buyer persona. The CFO cares about very different issues than the CTO. The Director of Compliance cares about very different issues than the CFO or the CTO. So we need to make sure that we have really good stuff for each of them. We also need to make sure that we have stuff that's different depending on where they are in the buyer's journey. Are they really ready to take the tour, or do they need a comparison guide on how to evaluate different colocation providers? Or is it something even earlier on where they're looking for security-related issues of how to find a good IT infrastructure partner? You also, to do this the right way, your conversion path should have a decent conversion rate, and there should be a nurturing sequence behind it, because if we know our sales cycle length and we think the average person is going to be in our sales cycle, in our sales process for 50 weeks, and we're going to send a new piece of content every week, we sure as heck better have 50 ways to keep staying relevant to them as opposed to just nagging and begging for an appointment. From the Friends Don't Let Friends department, how many of you have companies that invest in things like Google AdWords or Facebook advertising or any kind of paid online advertising? From the Friends Don't Let Friends department, make sure that you don't do that until you have good converting landing pages and you have a good nurturing sequence behind it, because clicks are pretty expensive, especially good ones that are really highly qualified for the kind of decision makers and influencers you want to reach. And you don't want to mess around with that stuff if you don't have a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You need a lot of second chances to be able to get them to say, yep, I finally get it. These folks know their stuff. I'm ready for a conversation. It's important, too, that we are constantly measuring what is working and what's not. All leads are not created equal, and if you treat them as such, you tend to underinvest in certain areas and overinvest in other areas. So we got